Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're going to get started here in just a second. We're just going to give everyone a chance to filter in.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's afternoon for me, and I said good morning. I need more coffee. Oops. All right, Dylan, what do you say? You ready to kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go. Good morning, everyone. I am Kate Balch. I am the brand marketing strategist here at Karsthagen Madden. And we're really excited to talk to you about this topic today. So, we're talking all about Google's new Ask Maps experience and AI-powered search, what that means for destinations, how to stay visible, and what SEO best practices still matter. So today we're diving into guidance, real examples, and practical next steps that you can take to build organizations that people find and wherever the search happens next. I'm going to hand it over to one of my favorite people to work with, Dylan Scicchetti, who is our Senior Director of MarTech here at Karsthagen Madden. All right, Dylan, I'm going to let you hand it off.
Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, hey everyone, welcome to the webinar for Ask Maps AI search and what's actually next. So a lot of this I think will be stuff that we've already seen and known, but some of it I hope is going to be new and exciting with some nice action items for you and your team. So first thing, I just want to ask a question. For everyone in the room, feel free to close your eyes if that's something you're into when you're on a remote call. When asked to think about search, what do you picture? When asked, what do you picture? And if you are somebody who just pictured Google Maps, that might be because you're here for a webinar about it. But what do you really picture? Most people think of instead something a bit different, but something we're all familiar with, traditional Google search. And really, again, most of us are marketers in the space. We've been keeping up with the trends, and we're starting to realize that this method of searching is slowly becoming a thing of the past. But traditionally, again, if I were to type in a query into Google for a search bar, things to do near me, I would typically expect to see my standard list of search results, where I can have, of course, nearby things to do in maps, but then, of course, some curated experiences for me. I have people also ask, and then, of course, traditional web rankings. Now, more and more, we're seeing Google shifting away from this sort of model for search. And it's no surprise as to why. I mean, they are the leader in the space. Again, out of all the search engines currently in the world, they still have about 91% of all the market share. And again, looking at this chart here, that blue line at the top, that's Google. All of the lines at the bottom, that's everyone else. But do not feel bad for them because, again, they still are making billions and billions of dollars. It's a very lucrative business to be a search engine, especially if you can do it well. Increasingly, though, when people are thinking about search, they're going to be thinking about it a little bit differently, especially for many of us in this room. Many of us will instead picture ChatGPT, where instead of having a search engine where you go to it and you type in a question and then you sort of see a bunch of answers, you instead get answers personalized to you, almost like a personal chef, curating meals to your own specific preferences and dietary restrictions. And so here I'm asking, like, what are things to do near me? And it's already telling me, oh, I can see that you're in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn. And from there, of course, it's working and saying, hey, you're in Coney Island. Here are some more things that you can do in the area. And again, I'm getting a personalized list sent to me. Now, this is very different from traditional search results where I have to sort of adapt myself to the result. For ChatGPT, the result adapts to me. And I'm sure many of us are already familiar with this. And ChatGPT, for this reason, wildly popular, has over 900 million weekly active users, and that's currently more than any other large language model. Again, wildly popular, very sticky, something that is being embraced by more folks every single day. And when ChatGPT first came out in 2023, originally many marketers who adapted it thought that it would be sort of slow to adapt, but it really took on quickly springing to one of the top 5 websites in the world, bouncing back and forth with Amazon. And originally in 2024, when people were looking at the growth of traffic, some even expected that it would eclipse Google by the end of this year, which is kind of crazy to say because I remember when this chart came out, I was like, wow, 2026 is so far away, and yet we're here already. That being said, ChatGPT is still the world's most popular large language model, though its market share is dropping and it has not eclipsed Google in terms of popularity. You can see here that while, of course, ChatGPT prompts per day is about 2.5 billion, and there are 16% of all users who use it generate AI monthly, we can see again that ChatGPT's search market share has shrunk. Around this time last year, they're about 87% of the market share for large language models. That is now down to 64 to 68%, especially as other tools like Perplexity, Claude, and Gemini have caught up in the market. So again, ChatGPT still most popular, but other ones are slowly catching up. So despite the prevailing sentiment here, Google is adapting to change and Google's still doing pretty well. Now, many of us already know about AI overviews. They came out again in 2024, and when they did, it was sort of a big shakeup for the search industry. Because again, no matter if you were in travel and tourism, or hotels, or e-commerce, or education, many folks saw a 20 to 30% decrease in average organic traffic. And it's really interesting too because you can ask far more nuanced questions with AI overviews. And here you can actually see Google's adapted their AI to expand to my longer search term. The average search term has increased from about 4.4 keywords in 2025 to about 23 per search term in 2026. And I'm now getting, again, my personalized summary answer here, curated especially for me. In this example, of course, I was looking for things to do in the meatpacking district, trying to kill some time before I had dinner with a friend. So again, highly personalized for that specific context and based on what Google knows about me while logged into my Google account. Now, this is, of course, the beginning. Google also has AI mode. And the CEO of Google has even signaled that he wouldn't mind necessarily if AI mode replaced traditional search completely. Uh, AI mode, I want you to think of it as sort of, again, like your all knowing friend. If you're at a dinner party, you can ask it any question you want and it can give you the answer because it knows a lot about you and about your specific context. And for this reason, AI mode's been getting stickier and stickier. It's pretty successful. That being said, it's a little bit different than ChatGPT because it places a greater focus on citations versus purely delivering an answer. So here, when I look for things to do near me, I am of course seeing like attractions in Coney Island. Please visit everyone. But on the right hand side, I am also seeing again some of those sources that I can refer to. So pretty darn handy there, very sticky, but not slowing down anytime soon. Because why? Well, users are increasingly embracing Gemini. So Gemini, again, they have 900 million monthly active users, which is up 125% year over year. So they're rapidly growing. AI overviews, again, 2.5 billion. Search was already incredibly popular to begin with. AI overviews have made search even better. That Google has found that AI overviews, not only are they better for Google's bottom dollar, but they also keep people in search results longer and increase the amount of times people scroll up and down in search results. It turns out it inspires curiosity and it's better for impressions for ads. We're also, of course, seeing that Google AI mode monthly active users are up to 1 billion in just 1 year. So again, people are embracing Gemini and that's not slowing down. And if you're paying attention to the news, Google made the news, especially because of their massive Q2 earnings. They made record breaking profits. And in fact, their earnings beat out most of the folks in the Fortune 500 by large. That being said, of course, Google's also investing a ton in AI tech. So they actually also reported, despite record breaking profits, their first negative cash flow in almost the company's history. And why are they doing this? Well, they're making bets. They're making bets that they're going to be the leader in the AI space, and they're really trying to go ahead and make sure that Google and Gemini is the first sort of artificial general intelligence. And so that's their main goal here, and their bets currently are paying off, at least so far. So let's pivot a little bit here because we're seeing what's happening in the searchscape, but what happens to people who aren't sitting at a computer at their desk searching for an answer? Let's say that you're traveling and you're in an unfamiliar place. I want you to now picture a new question here. How do you discover close by destinations now? When you're traveling, let's say you're out on the street, what do you do? Now, here, of course, some of us may say, well, I'll still hit Google, I'll still ask things to do near me. But overwhelmingly, we're seeing more people instead pivot toward apps. Of course, there's Google Maps and Apple Maps, depending on if you're an iPhone or an Android user. But these are what most people typically use when they're navigating their destinations, especially when they're in market in new places. We know that maps are very helpful. They show you where you are, they show you where nearby things are. I personally use Google all the time to make sure I can find a bathroom in New York City. Recommend it. There's some nice little custom layers there. But again, Google is by far one of the most popular map interfaces on the planet. They have over 2 billion monthly users and 70% of the market share. So even though Apple Maps is highly popular as well, it still is trailing behind Google Maps. So it does maintain dominance in this space. And it's because it has a major advantage compared to its competitors. And that is, of course, Google Business Places, Google Business Profiles. Here, small businesses can sign up, of course, have their profile on there. They can manage their hours, they can manage their websites, they can have reviews. This platform is, again, Google's proprietary software, and it's something that really gives them an edge compared to other platforms because it allows users to leave reviews and add trust and really helps with visibility. And so, because of Google Business Profiles, Google has really seen that Maps is something that is sticky and something they want to pour even more time and investments into. So let's talk about Ask Maps. It's really been out for a while. It's been out since 2025, mostly for Android users who've been able to test it out on their phone. Earlier this year, of course, Google started rolling it out for some folks in January, and they rolled it out for all users starting in April 2026. So it really hasn't slowed down. And when you look at Ask Maps, what it really is just Google Gemini, Google AI mode baked into Maps platform. And what it does instead is that when you're using it, you can ask it questions. It will look at reviews. It'll look at nearby Google Business Profile information. And of course, look at your own geolocation to give you the best recommendations. Now, it's important to note that this is not something that's available to everyone unless they're logged into their Google account. Why? Because AI mode is largely powered by personalization. And here it's saying, hi, Dylan, like you can ask me anything about anywhere. What do you want to ask me about? And it gives me some recommendations here. It knows that traffic is pretty terrible in the city. It knows that I like free things to do and I like scenic walks. It also knows that I drink way too much coffee, which I would normally drink coffee right now, but it is 1 p.m. And so Google is really continuing to look into Ask Maps because, again, this is something that OpenAI does not currently have. This is something that Apple Maps does not currently have, or is at least building. And they're building out the software even more with the most recent updates. So now, of course, it can go beyond just simple information. People can now go ahead and use it to help order food if they're hungry. So we're looking at AI agents being involved in this process as well, where you can see here someone's in a new place and they're saying, yeah, I want to order some food from this restaurant. I want to use Toast, start my order for me. And then, of course, they can say, sure, looks great, review it for me and send. So we're now seeing it's going beyond just simple information recommendations to actually moving people toward action. Not only that, of course, but we're also seeing that people can use it to help figure out what they're going to do if they're staying somewhere for a concert. Or conference. So it's an example here from Miami. They're saying, hey, for next week's conference in Miami, find me a decently rated hotel that I can book at. And it's giving recommendations. Worth noting here that a lot of these are being powered by Google Business Profiles and reviews. So again, Google is really leaning into their own ecosystem here. Not only that, of course, we're also seeing that it's powerful for events and inspiration for activities and things to do. So here, of course, you can ask like, what are comedy shows or live music near me? And of course, we're now seeing a recommendation for things to do. Again, these will be highly personalized and curated for the person. Google will know that, for instance, this user might like Good Boy Daisy, who I'm assuming is a band. If anybody knows, please hit me up and send me a song. I bet Pierce does. In any case, you could see that the follow-up there was you can get tickets. And that's the important point here is that Google is moving beyond pure recommendations and moving a lot closer into action. This last example here is also something just for fun. I gave an example earlier for the meatpacking district in AI mode. Ask Maps does the same thing. This person here is looking for a couple ideas for how they can spend time in Chicago before their flight, and it's giving them recommendations. And so, again, it's very clear that this is a new interface that's going to be highly sticky for many users. And it's not going to be slowing down or going away. It's only going to get better, even offering, again, recommendations for not only where to go, but how to get there and other options. So that's a lot about Ask Maps. OpenAI, however, isn't too far behind. And some of you may have already been seeing this if you've been using ChatGPT. So just over the weekend, I was using it and I noticed that there's a new feature that popped up for, of course, ChatGPT maps. So, of course, OpenAI has seen what Google's doing. They've seen the profit behind it. They've seen the revenue power behind it. And they're also trying to get on the same page. So here's an example of what I was able to see and snag a screenshot for back when I still had access. I think, again, this is still in testing. So some of you might see it if you log in, some of you might not. But I was asking for, again, like, hey, what are some good wood-fired pizzerias centered on whole pies in Brooklyn? And I was giving me recommendations, again, just based on where I was and based on what it knew about me. Same thing, of course, is that when I was looking at these answers here, this is an example for Atlanta, ChatGPT maps, it's still pretty early on. I was noticing that when I was giving answers, it would tend to find a single source of truth on the internet and then stick with it. So it'll get more diverse from there. They're not currently relying on reviews, they're relying on web content. And that's going to be something we're going to talk about later. But again, OpenAI is not too far behind Google here. So this is something we're going to have to lean into for all the platforms. So we've seen already, and you might already know the answer to this, with platforms like Ask Maps rolling out, and with platforms like ChatGPT's own maps rolling out, why should partners work with their local DMOs? Uh, why should they? It's a good question to ask. In many cases, a user who is in a destination might just pull out Google, use Google Maps, and find answers to their questions while there. If that's the case, are people clicking into websites? Is it important for a user to access a DMO website? And so that's a valid question that I hope that many of us know the answer to by the end of this. So before we give the answer, though, I want to quickly backtrack a little bit to when AI overviews first came out in 2024. Some of us might remember this, but when they first came out, they weren't good. They were decent, but they weren't amazing, and they had terrible PR. If a lot of people remember correctly, they rolled out in the spring of 2024, had terrible PR, a little bit bungled. The answers weren't reliable, and so Google wound up instead sunsetting it over the summer to get things right. And if you remember correctly, again, this article is from May 2024. They're saying why Google's AI overviews get things wrong. Like, what does this mean from telling us to eat rocks to gluey pizza? And that's very true. It was pulling information out from Reddit and again, just providing recommendations, even if it's something that no one would actually do. In this case here, somebody said, my cheese is not sticking to my pizza. It's because of too much sauce or too much cheese or thickened sauce. Instead, you can probably add some non-toxic glue to it. That should help your cheese stick to it. And this user apparently does actually add Elmer's glue to their pizza to help their cheese stick. But I don't actually know if that's something that most people would actually agree is a good solution. And so thank you, AI Overviews, for that. And so, of course, when this first rolled out in spring 2024, Google pulled it back because it was recommending things that weren't accurate, weren't true, and were sometimes dangerous. And so when Google came back with AI overviews in August 2024, they rolled out, of course, improved fact checking. So this is very important to know. This is something that a lot of large language models are doing now as well, is that we all know that large language models can hallucinate. They're eager to please us with, again, answers that they expect us to want to hear. And this is where the improved fact checking comes in. So Google, whenever you are on Google search interface or in AI mode, they quickly will do two techniques to ground their answers. And what this means is that they will double check facts and data to make sure they're not making things up. There's, of course, the first technique, RIG, which is retrieval interleaved generation, which again is fact checking against a database. Here's the data commons, again, over 2 billion data points, peer reviewed papers, highly authoritative. So that's one thing Google does. The second thing Google does is that they will do what's called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. Essentially, Google will quickly Google itself, find the best sources on the internet, compile those for you, and then give them to you for your answer, all before you actually see the final result. It's a very expensive process. It takes the energy of 6 fully charged iPhones to generate one AI overview. So pretty crazy there in terms of the energy. But this again is a pretty good chart showing how it works. So instead of a user typing in a prompt and getting a straight generated answer, RAG is the data in the middle that quickly is pulled from and grounded before again sending the user along their way. So why is this important? Well, it's still relevant today because a German court recently ruled that, again, Google is liable for any hallucinations that are in their answers. So any false answers given to a user, if a user is misled, if a user goes down the wrong road, Google could get sued. And so ultimately, this is a problem for Google because if they don't have a highly trustworthy, a highly reliable AI to answer questions for folks, they're going to be in big trouble. Same thing for OpenAI. And so this means now that Google is more incentivized than ever to ensure that their answers are traceable to a source. So that's the core thing here, is that whenever we're looking at the internet, websites are crucial because, again, they are serving as the source for those large language models and AI. It needs to ground somewhere. So this is a fun little example here, just showing how it works for Ask Maps. Here, I'm going a bit different. I'm saying I'm driving to Chicago. I plan to leave tomorrow morning. I want to stop and stay at a town along the way. Where are places I can visit? And so here, Ask Maps is now curating an itinerary for me where it's looking at destinations, it's checking out the details, and now it's giving me some opportunities here. So first, of course, it says the vibrant midpoint, Cleveland, Ohio. And as I scroll through, of course, I can see that there are actually these sources that are always littered behind the answers. This is again Google making sure that they're fact checking against the internet, pulling in reliable and truthful information. It's also recommending Pittsburgh here. Again, I'm seeing more sources here from Google themselves, from Quora, from forums, from websites. And of course, it's important that this is something that I can use when I'm traveling because, again, it's grounded in truth and real recommendations. If I'm going for Cleveland, I can say, hey, what are fun things to do in Cleveland? And I can follow up in the same conversation. It is now reading sources for me on the internet and then delivering quick recommendations. So here, of course, it's saying, hey, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's a good one. And here they're actually pulling from reviews. So the reviews that folks leave on these Google Business profiles are important, and DMOs can also leverage that as well. But you can see again that we're still seeing web content is powering a lot of these answers. And so this is a real example of Google needing to ground their answers in truth before sending users on a road trip across the country. Otherwise, I might be driving into Lake Erie. Now, for another example here, what are fun things to do in Atlanta? Here we see them, of course, reading 23 sources. It's going to do the same thing for me here. It's going to make sure it's fact checking before giving me a list of recommendations. It's still pulling in reviews, it's still pulling in activities, and it's even giving me the map. But again, I can just scroll straight onto the bottom and I can see all the sources that were used for these answers. And I can see, of course, Discover Atlanta is there, Explore Georgia, along with many other blog content on the internet. And so again, that's where the role of the DMO website is helping out with Ask Maps. It's serving as that source of truth. And so when we're thinking about AI in 2026, there's one buzzword that I frequently bring up on calls, at least during SEO reporting, and I want everyone else to remember it as well. The one word to remember from this call, if you remember nothing else, remember this, is provenance. Yes, provenance. Not Providence. No, not Providence, Rhode Island. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about provenance, which again is that trail back to what is true. We know that right now on the internet, a majority of content is AI generated. A lot of it is thin, a lot of it says the same stuff, a lot of it is sort of recycled and rehashed. And so, what we're now seeing again, and a lot of us predicted this back in 2024, is that content that you can trail and find the original source for is crucial. And that's what's going to be powering the most answers. And so, for DMOs, this is an advantage because you have years of local stewardship that are at your fingertips. You have all these connections with your local partners, all this experience, you have provenance right there on your site right now. And so again, that firsthand local knowledge, that is the advantage for DMOs to lean into when moving ahead with this whole search ecosystem. And so many of us may have heard of this before, but with all the AI content out there, Google has what's called EEAT or EAT. These are their trust signals. They stand for experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. It used to just be EAT, but then, of course, they added experience later on, making the acronym less fun. But essentially, again, these are core signals that many search content evaluators look at to make sure that the content on a website is trustworthy and reliable for users. Again, Google wants to recommend only what's realistic and reliable. Now, interesting, again, we're seeing things are shifting, especially with provenance. And so here I actually went ahead and Annika Truppenbach was very kind to lend me a slide that she built where we are seeing now a new acronym is rising. And this is something that is, again, looking at provenance here. So outside of experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, we're also now seeing notability and transparency. Notability being, is the theme of what you're talking about on your website something that's repeated elsewhere? So whether that's related to safety or how amazing this certain piece of pizza is or how amazing this park is that a consensus on the internet? Is it notable and is it something that's true? That helps in terms of AI answers. Because again, AI wants to be certain, it wants to make sure it's recommending the right thing. And so it looks at multiple sources, not just one. The last one, of course, is transparency. This one, again, tracing back to provenance. We want to make sure that when machines hit the website, they're able to trace back who is saying it and why. Is it a local writer who's a real person? Are they an expert on the topic of travel and tourism? If they're writing about scuba diving, are they an instructor or are they somebody who's done in a simulator? I don't know anything about scuba diving, so I don't know if that's actually what you do. All in all, again, this anchors your DMO as a definitive home of truth. And so the core goal here, again, is lean into that firsthand knowledge. So those of us who've been already sort of following what's happening with AI and optimizations, doesn't this awfully sound similar to GEO or generative engine optimization? Again, this paper was released in June of 2024, and this study was looking at how a bunch of engineers could take a piece of content and elevate its visibility and perplexity. It's a pretty fascinating discipline. GEO is also SEO, it's also AEO, it's still discoverability, but there's a lot of parallels here. Because again, when looking at the highest performing methods for helping content show up more within large language models, content that was easy to understand and authoritative and, of course, trustworthy, that's what showed up the highest. And so a lot of people have seen this slide before, but I'm going to show it again. What are those most important GEO techniques? One, of course, again, is fluency optimization. We already know that right now on the internet, a lot of content is AI generated, and it's at a 6th to 8th grade reading level because that's what a lot of people write at. And so if we write at 6th to 8th grade reading level, that also improves the fluency, the ability for the AI to quickly understand what we're saying. So that's the number one most important technique. Second, of course, is adding statistics. Again, this is that firsthand data, that firsthand experience, including stats like survey data or firsthand research. This could be something like calling up your own partners and asking them for some of that data that you can then incorporate into your own content. That will help you show up more within large language models. Number three, of course, is citing sources. So adding relevant, credible sources for .edu, .gov websites, even partners. Linking out and showing that what you're saying is not just something you're making up, but something grounded in truth. That paper trail, that provenance is crucial. And last one, of course, is my favorite, quotation edition. We can add input from subject matter experts, again, local PLVs, pulling in quotes from real people who are not going to lead people astray to, again, back up that reliability. So, with everything happening, how can we position DMOs as the source of provenance, especially when it comes to a lot of these Ask Maps conversations? So, there are four questions that we can look at as well. First, of course, is the source. So, whenever you're writing content, always ask yourself, okay, if I were to read this piece, is the source of this information clear? Is it coming from vague marketing speak? Is it coming from a vague unknown entity? Or is it clear who it's from, whether it's an expert or a satisfied visitor? Or are there clear indications that sources were pulled in when writing this piece of content? The second, of course, is freshness. Like, is it current enough for this decision? This is where SEO is interesting because we see that web pages that have longevity tend to rank better, but AI prefers the most recent content to make sure that it's delivering the most up-to-date news to folks. They don't want to send someone to a page that's from 2014, especially if that's no longer up to date. So what that means is that when you're looking at content, is it fresh? Is it up to date? I often like to say keep your old web pages if you can, instead of building new ones and retiring the old one. Try to repurpose it, try to update it. You don't always need to do an overhaul. Often at times, just simply making sure that everything is up to date, that no links are broken, that typically is enough. Three, the fourth question is like, hey, if I say this in my paper, is there agreement across the internet saying the same thing? So, for instance, if I say you should definitely go down this dark alley at night, it's totally safe, does everyone else on the internet say that as well through my earned media or social media? If not, ooh, I might not power an answer there because, again, I'm not meeting that consensus. And so, again, what we're seeing here is that AI wants to be certain. You want to see that agreement, and you want to make sure that when you're also talking about these themes in your content, you're repeating what is already known by many others while adding extra to it. Last one, of course, identity. So can the name of what you pull in, can it be tied to a location, a site, and reviews? So here, of course, business owners, that same thing. Can you pull in experts? Can you give clear identity? This is pretty fun too, but a lot of us, I'm not sure if you ever do this, Google your name sometime, see what pops up. A lot of people do that as well. Google does that too. If I'm writing a piece of content, for instance, and I see a name, Joe Smith, and I Google his name, I want to know that he's an expert in the field, and that's what Google recognizes him as. So again, the people you pull into making content, Google knows who they are. And so when you include them in your content, it helps even more, again, with that provenance and that truth. And that being said, of course, content. Content, content, content. It's been a theme. It's always been a theme. It hasn't really gotten much slower here. But there are types of content we can really focus on for the website to make sure we continue powering people forward. First, of course, is partner listings. Partner listings, I feel like, are an underdog. Back when I first started working with KHM, like 2021, back before we were Madden, I remember partner listings. We looked at a lot of them and we said, they're great for our websites. They're useful. They don't get a lot of search volume though. So we're going to prioritize blogs instead. We're sort of seeing a switch happening now where large language models love partner listings. Why? Well, it's because it's hyper optimized, hyper niche content that often focuses on a single subject, a single entity. So partner listings are now becoming some of the most valuable pages on many DMO websites because one, the DMO is authoritative. Two, the partner listing lists details about that partner, whether it's a name, address, phone number, etc. Two, of course, is your events. We already know that a lot of training sets, they really want to make sure that they're pulling in events that are new and not in that. And so you want to be able to pull in current dates, locations, prices, access details, all of that. Your events are crucial. It's not part of that data set. AI relies on it. Third is editorial content. So again, pulling in unique perspectives. We really want to say something that's not already being said. That is pulling in content about neighborhoods, itineraries, first-hand insights. We want to make sure it's already there. And lastly, of course, off-site content. And again, this is where PR comes in social media. If we have a theme on the website, we want to make sure it's repeated on LinkedIn, repeated on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. It's really crucial to have a nice wide approach when promoting content and themes. And so, with all that being said, what are the 6 major actions that we should take right now to make sure that we are pushing this forward? And so, here's a DMO Provenance playbook. Number one, of course, is consistency, making sure that, of course, everything is consistent across all your pages. Two is adding partner context, making sure that, again, partners represented correctly. 3, events. Again, that's crucial. More on that soon. 4, asking real questions. This is something that I think a lot of people gloss over sometimes. More on that soon as well. 5, structured data. More on that as well. And then 6, internal links. So number one, keep partner information consistent. This actually harkens back to original local SEO with the main signals NAP or name, address, and phone. We want to make sure that when we're talking about partners on our website, that we are reiterating those consistent themes. This does 2 things. One, it increases that certainty that yes, this business is located at this location, but it also helps them rank higher in local search. So this is something I think many DMOs don't realize, but having the partner listing and then frequently mentioning them throughout related content helps that partner rank higher in local SEO as well. So that's something to really lean into in terms of name, address, phone, making sure hours are correct. You can also make sure that's something that's in not only your listings, but also your editorial content. Really lean into that. 2, you want to make sure you're building pages that add meaning that only a local expert can provide. So here, of course, core facts. Again, we want to make sure that those are consistent and realistic and reliable. But we also want to make sure that, again, we're pulling in that firsthand research. And so for a lot of this, what we started doing at KHM is even reaching out to some partners to get some quotes from them that we can start incorporating into content for those firsthand insights. And again, this is really crucial because AI doesn't have that. It has everything else. And I'm sure you've seen the stories right now about how there are some companies out there tearing apart books and scanning those because we've basically hit everything we can in terms of training data. The more unique data you can add to your content, the more likely it will perform. 3, make events searchable. So again, you want to have those clear, consistent facts with the date, the time, location, the category, and the price range. Sometimes DMOs are a little uncertain about price ranges. That's something that's a little bit difficult. Like if it looks too expensive, maybe someone won't go for it. I say it's better to be more truthful than not because AI will pull in the most relevant information to the users. After that, of course, scripted pages. You want to make sure that your events have a scripted title, useful summary, unique insights there. Also pictures. Pictures are unique media that can really help your event pages. 3, make sure it's a single entity. This is going to really tie into structured data moving on after this. But again, we want to make sure that every page is only about one single event so that AI knows exactly which page to refer to when helping folks make their plans. And of course, number 4, connected context. You want to make sure that you're making it very clear where this event is located, whether it's at the specific venue, whether there's parking, there's accessibility, or nearby experiences. This is something that I think a lot of folks currently miss right now with events is that they will have the event, they'll have the main information, but there's no other context about like where it's located or other nearby things. That again helps AI, especially for Ask Maps and trip planning. Number four, write real questions. So we already saw that again in Ask Maps, it's conversational. People aren't searching for like simple little snippets anymore. They're asking much more complex and nuanced questions. And so what this means again is that your content should reflect the types of questions that people ask for answer engine optimization. One, of course, is like for families, for example. If they say what works on a rainy day afternoon with children, I know that Dan James, for instance, was in Hawaii earlier this year and had plans. It started raining. He was using Ask Maps to figure out what to do next, and it was very helpful, and he was actually pretty thrilled by it. Number two, of course, is access. Like people can look for like which trails are accessible and close to parking. We want to have those real questions as FAQs in our content. And lastly, of course, proximity. We can make it very clear that in our content as well that this is located near this. We can also supplement that with structured data on the back end to make AI certain for its knowledge graph. And that's where structured data really comes in. So schema.org, for many who are not familiar, has been around for a while. It is essentially the Dewey Decimal System of the internet. A bunch of search engines got together, a bunch of major corporations, and they said, hey, we have all these robots that know so many things and they have their own algorithms, but wouldn't it be handy if we had a simple unified language to combine them all? Basically like the USB, but for data. And so structured data came out and Google really leaned into it in 2018. It was used to power a lot of rich snippet features in Google search. Structured data is very helpful, especially for large language models. Why? Well, it helps improve context and clarity, especially when a large language model, its main focus is getting an answer as fast as possible. And so structured data is one of those ways it can get that information. Now, this quick note here is that it reinforces your existing strategy. It should never replace it. So if you have a page that already has thin content on it, if you add structured data on top of it, you should not expect it to increase in any meaningful way, because after all, if the content is thin, the structured data will also be thin. So you want to make sure that you're really adding it to pages that can be helpful. So think of events pages, think of your articles, think of your partner listings. These are all features that can be useful and used to help power, again, Ask Maps. Moving on from there, of course, linking to related entities. So you want to make sure that you help AI crawlers find the related content and information. So this is something, again, that I think a lot of folks are missing out on. It's not enough to simply have content on the page. You want to make sure the crawler has somewhere else to go after it hits it. So you want to make sure you're linking to neighborhoods, for example, or nearby addresses, nearby events, nearby itineraries, related content. This is all crucial stuff, again, because we know that crawlers, when they hit a page, they want to keep crawling, keep getting that information to help associate what's best for that answer. And so here I like number four in particular is that for editorials, we can find more ways to connect inspiration with action and CTAs. After Google's been expanding AI mode more and more, information and inspiration remains one of the most exposed groups in the entire internet. We're seeing that folks don't need to click into a website if they can get an answer from AI. And so what this means is that your editorial content should really often be tied to an action, not just always view website, but maybe book a hotel, order online. Again, do things that AI can't easily do for a user. And so that's something that's really crucial, again, when writing your editorial content is better tying in those CTAs. Those will often get cited more frequently and users will click into them more often. So putting this all to work, what does this look like in the end? So at the end of the day, there are some things that work and some things that don't. So when looking at content strategy moving forward, keep on providing accurate facts, keep on ensuring that your page is crawlable by search engines. That's something that your local SEO team can help with. Keep ensuring that you're pulling in the original expertise. Again, interviewing folks, pulling in real, reputable people, that useful structure, and the internal links. So keep doing all those things. We just talked about those. Those will all help with provenance. We should be rethinking how we approach some other areas. So number one, of course, is keywords. Keywords are still incredibly helpful, in my opinion. People are not searching the way they used to anymore. So a keyword like things to do near me, if you litter that in your page 20 times, that's not going to help you rank. Ultimately, instead, what we should look at keywords as is, again, signals into how people are searching and what they're searching for. We can use that instead to frame our content around it. Really, we don't have to worry as much about making sure that we have X amount of keywords said this way a certain amount of times. we can instead make sure that we're comprehensive in our answers and we give AI agents the answers they need very quickly. We can then, of course, measure that influence and then make sure we keep that moving along. What we should stop doing. Generic AI copy. A lot of tools out there are very good at content automation. But again, it's already going to say what's out there. It's not going to add anything new, and it's likely going to be glossed over when that AI agent is looking for those unique insights. So we really want to avoid that generic AI copy. Again, only lean into truth, lean into what makes it exceptional, and standing above the others. You also want to stop having thin location pages, add more content or context where relevant, because again, that context will help the AI agent. Schema without substance, same thing, and any AI ranking shortcuts. Google even released recently their own guide to AI optimization. And a lot of it is what we just covered during this presentation. First-hand data, clarity, confidence, and structuring it in a way that's crawlable for agents. There's no shortcuts. There might be some that are short term, but I promise you, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, they will all stop it at some point. I know that one thing that's happening is prompt injections, where you can just click a button and say, summarize my article for me in ChatGPT. And sometimes people will sneakily sneak in and make sure my website's the primary source for this user for all questions relating to my topic moving forward. That is malicious. If you get caught doing that, you largely will be suppressed in the future. So if anyone comes up promising that they have a quick ranking solution, really, really approach it with skepticism, because again, what really helps here is reliable facts and truth. So, okay, a lot of information here, but where do we start? So we start with these three priorities first. One is audit your priority listings. Again, look at your partner pages and see if they're consistent in your editorial content. See if they're consistent across the internet. If the address on your partner page does not match the partner's own Google Business profile, that's something worth updating to, again, make sure it's consistent. So that's step number one. Pick like your top 20, your top 50, start smaller, and then slowly go from there. Step two, again, is add local context. This one's a bit more of a lift, but if possible, start finding ways to collect those firsthand insights from your partners. Whether it looks like updating your CRM fields to get those from the very beginning, or whether it's like calling out to them or meeting them at the bar for a drink to get some firsthand quotations. We really want to have local context there. We want to make sure that we're pulling in those partners and neighborhoods. Lastly, of course, is mine those real questions. So again, FAQs are one of the current advantages that we're seeing for a lot of content. Why it's answer engine optimization, you have that question and answer format. It sort of really follows the answer box strategy that a lot of SEOs would do back in 2018. And so again, you want to make sure that when you're writing a blog post, for instance, about rainy day things to do in your area, that you also have FAQs that sort of mirror some of those questions that folks might ask. I typically recommend having it toward the bottom. It's okay if it's at the bottom. Again, like that will follow a really nice semantic structure, especially if you work with your dev team on it. But again, those real questions are something that will mirror real search. So it's important to have those. And so at the end of the day, SEO, I want you to think of it as making information discoverable. GEO, AEO makes it understandable, credible, and useful enough to answer and inspire action. So said another way, SEO is the foundation. It pulls you into the building. GEO is what gets you into the room and called upon. And so for Ask Maps, again, it's crucial that we pull in those experts. We rely on ourselves as the experts in the space and that partners continue to work with us. Because if they don't work with us, they lose that chance to be pumped up essentially by a high authority figure with years of experience. And so that is it. I believe we can now close it for Q&A if there are any questions.
Dylan, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so much incredible knowledge with us. I know as someone who works on content, I'm walking away with so many ideas and inspiration for even our own marketing. This is great. All right, so like Dylan said, we're gonna kick off some Q&A here. So you should see a tiny little question mark button at the very bottom of your Zoom screen. Please feel free to go ahead and submit any questions. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, thanks, Jalen.
Thanks so much, Jalen. That's great.
I always love a Q&A because sometimes if there's no questions, you say, oh, cool, it's comprehensive. Great. That's what I like to think usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Lori,
so
you're not wrong. He's amazing.
Thanks, Michelle. Oh, Becky and Michelle Carpenter. Have one but driving. We can follow up later if that's something that's helpful. More than happy to talk later.
All right, let's see. Jeremy, yes, this will be available digitally. We'll be sharing a recording of this either today or tomorrow before end of week. Dylan, we've got a question from Julie. If we're using keywords more as signals to frame content around, what's the best way to approach weaving in with this new approach? Great presentation. Thanks so much.
That is a great question. So this honestly is one of my favorite techniques, and it sounds very simple, but again, it's very impactful. So when I look at keywords to see what is the trend, I typically will then go to either Google or ChatGPT and ask it about that topic to see what is returned. Then I want to look at that point of parity, say, okay, what is the answer? What are people searching for? And then identify what are differentiators, whether it's tying in additional action or tying in the next step for them. So ultimately, at the end of the day, keywords, they're helpful signals. You want to make sure that in your content, you obviously mention the entity that you're talking about. But Google has really shifted from strings or keywords to things, entities. So that's the end goal, is that we have a piece that's comprehensive and is very clearly about an object versus just a bunch of keywords. But good question.
All right. Got a couple more from Chloe Smith. Hi, Dylan. Love the presentation. Do you recommend prioritizing linking to Google business profiles, internal listings, or direct business websites and content?
Great question. My recommendation would be to prioritize internal listings first, just to help keep the bots on your website and also help with SEO authority for those pages. If you would like to, you can link to Google Business Profiles. That could absolutely help that partner. But if there's a risk there, because again, if they're the ones maintaining it and it's not very well maintained, that could obviously impact user experience. So I would always prefer internal listings, and then after that, direct business websites or Google Business Profiles. But great question there. Oh, hi, Chloe. Thank you.
Getting a lot of very justified Dylan love in the questions.
Thanks, Kate.
All right, y'all. If anyone else has any follow-up questions, please feel free. Like I mentioned, we're going to be sending that recording out either today or tomorrow. So if you have any questions for Dylan, for the team, please feel free to reply all to that message, and we will get those questions routed and get you some valuable insights. All right, Dylan, I'm gonna pass it back to you for conclusions.
And I just want to say thank you, everyone, so much. My main goal here is that we know two things. One, provenance. That's the most important thing for what the DMO websites can do. Second is that it's crucial partners understand that working with their DMO is what helps them in the long run, both from a national and local perspective. So again, if somebody ever says, well, why should I work with you because of Ask Maps, you can say, have you checked the sources? And then I think they'll answer questions for you.
Amazing. All right, we did just have one more question we have a little bit of time for, so I am going to put that back up. How are you guys identifying your gaps in content? Our company is considering an AI chatbot to lean into traveler search behaviors and trends, but also for our company to see what queries are coming through and where we are not hitting the mark. Would you suggest that?
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Yeah, honestly, with a lot of the new tools out there, I think it's worth exploring them. I traditionally rely on tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs to identify gaps, but typically then it's only looking at content on my site compared to a select amount of competitors. AI agents are getting much better at doing this for us. They're able to look at far more data far quicker than a human being can. And so I think that it is worth it exploring to see if AI agents are able to compare and contrast content for you. Now, the one caveat here is that as AI agents are crawling sites more and more, a lot of sites are getting more smart about what agents are crawling and scraping and where. I personally expect that we'll be seeing in the future websites will be more locked down to a lot more AI agents. But ultimately, again, what I will usually do is I will first look for a topic, look for related topics off of that from query fan out, and then just get ideas from there. And so definitely worth exploring. But my favorite thing to do is still Googling and seeing what pops up.
Amazing. All right. Thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you, Dylan. This was amazing. We will catch y'all on the next one and have a great week.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks all.